Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Verified Investing Live. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist and Pro Trader here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. All right, folks, first and foremost, hope everyone's had a wonderful weekend as we get focused in on things. And again, markets futures are just opening right now slightly positive. I will track them as we get into things here in the session. All right, number one, markets continued their weakness on Friday. The big chart is the NASDAQ 100, which is very, very close to that key trend line, right? So that's an upsloping trend line that, again, stretches back quite a ways. Take a look at how far it goes back to basically June of 2020. And that trend line, again, a parallel line with the upper one as well. And notice, again, that's been the support. Every time we hit that level, that has been key support. The question is, when we get there, will we see a bounce or do we take it out? My general assumption is we're going to get some sort of bounce there, but my thinking is it will be somewhat of a muted bounce. Certainly, I don't expect us to go back up to the high end of the channel, and then I do believe that we will see a break. Probably in the first quarter here in 2022, we will see a break of that trend, that upward sloping channel, and then the markets will continue their downward pressure. All right, so it certainly should be interesting. I think it also bears mentioning that, we've seen so many stocks out there. I would say 70% of all stocks trading in a bear market right now. Finally, we're seeing cracks in big names, which had been carrying the NASDAQ 100 higher. So if we look at Microsoft, right? Microsoft basically just coming off all-time highs here, and just in the last 5 or 6 trading days, it's began to dump out. Now, it did fill a gap right here, so that should be short-term support, but ultimately, I do think it's going to head lower, and I think this is the key, folks. If you're going to see the indexes roll over, you have to see the trillion-dollar names roll over. So that includes, basically Amazon, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and even Tesla to some extent, which has also come in pretty sharply now. But again, still technically, I believe, a trillion-dollar name, even at the current levels where it's trading. But again, look at that fall from over $1,200 to basically $1,000 on Friday in just basically 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions. So again, the volatility is back. We have definitely seen that. Last week was a great week for the Chinese stocks. Loved seeing the price action in January, essentially the January effect taking hold, but also seeing China kind of stall on any new regulations. And the hope is, again, that they will be concluding a lot of that stuff as we get into things. Also, Viacom had an awesome week last week. Discovery, which I have options on, and I hold it in the live day trading room as well. That had a monster day on Friday and really a good week as well. So a lot of the beaten down names are seeing that January effect resurgence. Now the question again is, what happens in the next few weeks? Do we see some of these major levels on the NASDAQ 100 and the spiders get taken out, the upward sloping channel? You can see the spiders here. The spiders are quite a bit further away from that trend line. So again, it'll be interesting to see if we still get down there before we get some sort of bigger bounce in the market. All right, just doing a quick check of the S&P futures. Looks like we're up about 1.5 points. So again, very muted open. Oil is flat on the day, up 11 cents. And nat gas looking like a decent little bounce here. Gold down $1, silver's down about 6 cents. So again, for the most part, as of now granted the futures just opened a few minutes ago, pretty muted here, but we'll continue to track it throughout this Verified Investing Live segment. Okay, let me see what else we have on the radar here as we get into things here. Let me scan through here. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, that you guys have seen what I've been doing. Basically, I've been bottom fishing a little bit on names like SE, accumulating a little bit of that. NET has also been beaten down tremendously. Got a little bit of a bounce on Friday. We'll see if it can continue to hold up here. But again, I think that the beaten down names are where it's at. They were names that were really the hottest stocks out there, and then they've just taken huge dumps. I think you can also look at names like Square. If Square continues down a little bit more, I have some very, very big levels on Square coming up. In fact, one right here, you can see how close that is. That would be a nice swing trade as well. And really, Square, in all fairness, Square and a few other ones, you have to watch PayPal. It's not PayPal, excuse me. PayPal's another one. But you have to watch Bitcoin, right? And Bitcoin up a little bit from Friday, not a whole lot. But nonetheless, it is up slightly from where it closed. As of now, that's not enough to really energize some of these Bitcoin plays and these cryptocurrency plays, but certainly worth keeping an eye on. All right. All right, guys. Looks like S&P futures have now gone negative, down about 6 points. So again, nothing major yet. Just kind of keeping an eye on things. Looks like crude oil's down about 5 cents. Again, nothing major there, but ticking down just a little bit as the S&P futures start to roll over just a tiny bit as well. All right. Let's get into some questions tonight. Let's see what the market has in store for us via your questions. Anthony saying, what do you think of BP for a swing trade long? And Happy New Year. Same to you, buddy. Happy New Year. Let me take a look at BP here. See what we got on that one. So BP's had quite the run up here. It is coming into double top. So certainly I don't like it as a long trade here. So number one, anytime you're looking at a swing trade long, you want to be buying at lows into support, right? I mean, the whole idea of swing trading is to buy support, sell resistance, or short resistance and cover at support. And the fact that this has had such a big run up just in the last week, that definitely to me would not be something that you would want to do, especially if you look at the chart here, you're coming into double top. So again, doesn't mean it won't have a setup later on. Maybe it makes a bull flag for the next week or week and a half to give you an opportunity at that point. But certainly at this stage, I would be more inclined to short it if it hits this double top here for a pullback versus buying it after such a big move up. Okay? Next question coming from Pat. Pat saying, hi, Gareth. Wish you a very best to you and your family in 2022. Thank you so much. Same to you, Pat. I look forward to following you not only in both stocks and crypto services, but also when your fund opens. I noticed that you did not sell some of the stocks for tax loss harvesting. These stocks were positions before I joined the service question. I have available capital. Do you recommend that I take some of those positions? So the reason I didn't sell those positions, like I have a few Chinese stocks that were down significantly, right? IQ, TME, is because honestly, I didn't want to risk. So anytime you sell for tax loss, as I'm sure you know, Pat, you have to not buy it back for 30 days. And I was worried that, based on the January effect, some of these beaten down names could have big moves in January. And if I'm precluded from buying those back, then I would miss potentially 20-30% of a move, maybe even more. So I decided at that point to hold on to those. Having said that, yeah, I do like those. Those plays, again, you have to understand the risks of Chinese stocks right now, but at the same time, you look at the moves in some of these from last week, Alibaba, Baidu, and some of these other ones. I mean, just incredible moves to the upside just since January. Look at the move here. Big move up, bull flag on Alibaba, on Baidu, and pushing up here as well. And I think, again, you could be getting close to a pivot where, as we see, and I've talked about this before, as we see an exodus from U.S. stocks because the Fed is not as conducive to helping the market, then you could see these other names start to kind of reemerge as big runners. So bottom line is, yeah, I think you do. If you don't hold some of those, I think you accumulate them, small positions, and I think that's a good way to do it. Absolutely. Yep. Elon saying, love your work. Technically, you are unmatched. I feel we can try to do more shorting as we've seen over 300 companies on the S&P. Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm short a fair amount of stocks, as you know, Elon. I don't know if, again, if there's much else I want to short. At this point, you're not going to short something that's already in bear market territory that's down significantly. But I think I'm probably short at least 50% of my account based on positions out there. So just keep that in mind. That's a pretty heavy position on the short side. And what I loved about last week, folks, was that, we had our shorts doing well, DXD, which is a long, but it's obviously a short. And I hope you understand that, Elon, is that a lot of the stocks that I have were ETFs. I bought them, but they're actually short the market. Just make sure, again, that you understand that. But bottom line is we saw the shorts working out as well as the longs, and that's just the best of both worlds. That's telling you that the charts are working, whether it's a short chart or a long chart for you in to your advantage. So good stuff there. All right. Abby wondering about a good area for Humana. Let's take a look here. HUM. So that stock got hammered last week, absolutely demolished. Big move down. Now, this was a short-term support, and it closed below that on Friday. Didn't confirm, but I think you have to give it the possibility that it could go lower. I like this area down here for a swing, right around 341. So this pivot here going back to 2018, that looks like a pretty good, interesting area to me. So, yeah, I think 2018 pivot point there around 340 to 341 looks very, very interesting. VJ saying, since Chinese stocks have started to pick up since the new year, is it a good time to pick up some more IQ, TME, Tiger, Futu, RCON? Yeah, so I added RCON already into the year end, so I already brought my average down there. That's a really small stock, so I have a very small position on it. But yeah, I love Futu, TIGR, TME, IQ. I think, again, at these levels, absolutely we can add to them and it can continue to accumulate. I think, again, what I did was I even picked up KWeb calls last week. As well, so I'm slowly getting into more and more of the Chinese exposure there with various types of plays. Okay. Joseph saying, what do you think about shorting Alcoa? I did look at Alcoa over the weekend. I thought that was an interesting chart. You got kind of this extended move to the upside in the near term. One of the things I'm watching, and again, I think this is probably the most important line, taking the previous major pivot tops before sell-off, so you could see here was a high and then it sold off. Here was a high, then it sold off. And I got to believe that that's the line it wants to touch. So that would be your shortable level on a swing basis. That would give you a good basis for it. Now, you did put a topping tail in here, which is still technically in play. But again, this line to me is a big line, and I would rather give it the benefit of the doubt that it could at least touch that on an intraday basis before looking to pull the trigger on that short. Okay. Jonathan saying, wondering about some of the beaten down names like Piton, Viacom, Net. Are these good names to accumulate for longer term, or do you expect most of these to go substantially lower? Yeah, so in all fairness, I think ultimately after a technically oversold bounce on Peloton, it probably goes down. Probably will ultimately go to $20 or so. Now Viacom. Viacom at least has some value to it as a potential buyout target. So if I had to pick one of those three names between Net, Viacom, and Peloton, I would pick Viacom to hold because at least you have the potential that they get bought out for a nice premium at some point. But same thing with Net. I mean, even at current levels, NET to me is still overdone to the upside. Now, it's short-term oversold, so I'm in it for a technical bounce, but ultimately I think it's going lower. If you look at this chart here, it's still a remarkable move up. My guess is this is where you might consider accumulating for a longer term, maybe down around this 88 level. Now, it's not that far away, about $20, $19 away. But again, if you look at, a lot of these stocks were trading at multiples of 30 times revenue. Same thing for SE, right? SE ridiculously oversold, should technically bounce in this range. But, if you look at the longer term chart, if we go into an actual bear market, this thing could easily head down all the way down close to $100 right down here. Again, especially if you're looking at recessions in multiple countries potentially. So again, for me, going into a bear market, there are a few potential holds where I would hold them for longer term, but for the most part, try to be nimble. The one thing I've learned, and this is a lesson that I've learned many times over through all the 2 decades that I've been trading at this point, is that in bull markets, stocks are going to go much, much higher than you or I think. Right? Did I ever think SE was going to go up to $360? No, the valuation there was beyond ridiculous. It was literally trading at 50 times revenue. Not even earnings. We're talking revenue 50 times. Same thing with Net. I never thought it would go as high as it did. Same thing with some of these other ones. Same thing in bear markets goes on, right? So we might look at Peloton and say, oh man, Peloton at this level, it's got to be a good long-term hold. In a bear market, Peloton, literally in a bad bear market, Peloton could go back to $20 very, very easily. Very easily. And even then, it could even go lower. So just keep that in mind. I try to teach myself and remind myself that every cycle, and it's always hard. You always want to say, oh, well, it's down, it's from $300, it's down to $100. It's got to be a good buy here. And then it goes to $50, and you're like, oh, dang, Same thing on the upside, shorting it, like SE, I was short for the longest time. I was slowly averaging in. Finally, I was able to get out with I think I took a small loss, then we flipped it to a long, and then took a nice gain on the long. But, again, just never in my wildest dreams did I think it would go that high. Okay. King saying, I bought some Discovery at approximately 44 after the Archegos Capital collapse. Where do you see the level that it could where it could pull back to after this recent run to add to that for a better average? Sure, let's take a look here, see what we got here. So, again, amazing move up. Short term, it is overbought. There's no doubt about it. I think you look to see this gap fill. There's a gap fill right down here. This is the spot I think you look for on a pullback. So it's right based on the after hours around $30 and change. I think you have a pullback to maybe the high 25s to around 26. And then if you're looking to add to it, that's where you kind of add to it. Right in this area here, right at that gap fill, maybe you even look for this gap to be filled. I do think it'll pull back to that point, especially if the markets continue to be under pressure. I do think that's a good one. Okay? Kevin wondering about my average on DISC. I think it's just right around 33 or 32. I'd have to look at it exactly to see what the exact average is, but it's somewhere in that vicinity. Okay. Stefan saying, what are your views about shorting the junk bond index? Yeah, I mean, it does, to me, I think it's an interesting play. Certainly is. I'm trying to think if you could type in the symbol for that, I would appreciate it. The ETF. There's a couple good ETFs that we can take a look at those. Okay? Let me see here. Let me see what else we have here. Navjeet saying, hope you're enjoying the weekend. I understand when you need to add to a stock, you do it based on technical levels. How do you determine what percentage lower to add more? So it's based on technicals, but it's also based on how much it's down. And basically I do it by looking at the volatility of a stock. So for instance, a stock that is very volatile, you don't want to add let's say it's a $50 stock, you probably aren't going to add $1 lower because it's not going to change your average much considering the volatility of the stock when it could drop another $5 on you. So you have to kind of look at a couple different factors, but ultimately you want to look for something in the range that makes sense, and then you also want to find the technical level in there in that range to do it. Okay, and that gives you a good basis to where you should add. So again, in general, let's say an average volatility stock, a $50 stock, I'm probably looking to add about, every $3 to $5 on the downside. That would be a good area where it would bring your average down enough, but when you get a bounce, you'd quickly get in the money by bringing your average down that much. Okay? Awesome. Camille saying, I've been following you on Twitter, but finally signed up. Could you tell us, newer members, the method for confirmation? So I teach that method in the Elite Keys to Unlimited Success, Camille. So at some point, I would definitely recommend taking that webinar. Don't forget, folks, we do offer to you guys as members the $2,100 deal, which again, basically is every webinar on that advanced education page for $2,100 plus a year access. And that is by far the best deal out there. I mean, basically saves you $3,000 plus a year access. So before, if you're going to buy one webinar for like $800, you might as well do the $2,100 deal, get all 7 or 8 of them, which would, again, save you lots of money. Nerdy saying, give me your comment on Coin. Thanks. Sure, absolutely. Let's take a look at Coinbase. Now, Coinbase, remember, is generally going to trade with Bitcoin. It did find a nice support area on Friday and Thursday with a bottoming tail. So, in all fairness, what's fascinating about Coinbase here is that Bitcoin actually hit a major support at 40,000 and a half. And then you also had Coinbase. So, to me, honestly, Coinbase for a potential bounce looks interesting. But the other option you'd also have would be maybe just buy Bitcoin. Again, for me, I like buying exact things. Like if I'm going to buy gold, I'm going to buy gold. I'm not going to buy something that's like a derivative of gold. A lot of people always ask me about that. In fact, in Verified Investing Crypto, someone was even asking me about a cryptocurrency that tracks gold. And I always say, listen, if you want to buy gold, just buy gold. It's the purest play with the least risk in terms of something shady going on. You just don't know, right? So with Coinbase, not that something shady's going on there, but when you look at the risks of Coinbase, right, think about the massive fees they charge right now. Now, that's great for them now, but eventually what's going to happen is the same thing that happened to the stockbrokers, right? The commissions are going to go lower and lower and lower, and there's no way that they can continue to compete without lowering their fees as well. So, for me, if it's going to move with Bitcoin, and over the longer term, you're going to see their profit decline, I would most for sure go with buying Bitcoin directly or something like that. I mean, if you want, you could also look at a stock like Marathon Digital, which actually does some intriguing stuff with cryptocurrency, plus buys Bitcoin. This stock has been beaten down as well. Should go a little bit lower, I think. But again, it's coming into some pretty significant support on that one. And then again, yeah, I mean, you even have the BITU, but the BITO, which is the Bitcoin ETF, but the only thing I hate about that is that it trades off the futures, and therefore, you have slippage over time because of the futures rollover of the contract. Okay. Aaron saying, when do you think Bitcoin will dump through 40,000? I think maybe in about 2 to 4 weeks. I'm not sure if it'll be super soon. I'm kind of looking for a short-term bounce off this 40,000 level. Now, maybe it could pierce 40, right? I mean, the even numbers are usually pierced briefly, but I personally think that you could actually see a small bounce on Bitcoin, maybe back to 46, 47,000 in the near term, and then maybe it look like it's stabilizing before your next dump out, okay? Eventually, by the way, it's going to 30,000, and even I think it's going to 20, sub 20,000. I've been pretty adamant on that in terms of my analysis that that's where I think it's going. Ross saying, is there still room to short Rivian? There might be, but it's not a high percentage trade at this point. You know, any stock that falls from $180 down to, you know, I think the low on Friday or Thursday was around 75. I mean, at that point, you have to admit that you just missed the boat, right? It's down too much at this point. Do I think eventually it's going to $40? Yeah, probably, but it could easily go back to 120 first. So in terms of your short, that's too much risk for me personally. I just don't like that amount of risk to take on that when such little reward is left and it could bounce so much against you in the near term. Okay. Robert saying, how often do head and shoulder patterns like Bitcoin's, for example, play out to the projected target? That's a good question. Maybe 50% of the time they play out, maybe slightly more than 50%. It's not a high percentage. The head and shoulder pattern honestly has a failure rate of like about 40% of the time it fails. Now, when it plays out, it's amazing to watch, and you can literally pinpoint the target so easily. But honestly, as patterns go, it's not the best one. It's great because it's easy to spot, it's easy to calculate the target, but it's slightly better than 50%. That's about it. Mirabin wondering about Fastly FSLY. Let's take a look at that one. Yeah, so that one's been beaten down, but it did bounce on Friday, so that makes it a little tricky. But yeah, I mean, that has just been absolutely annihilated. There's a few levels I would keep a very close eye on. Number one here, and then there's a gap fill just below. This would be an amazing swing trading opportunity here, folks. All the way back around $23, $23.50. If I could get in there, I would absolutely be a buyer there on a swing trade basis on Fastly. That looks like an amazing level. Sean wondering, can you go through Rio Tinto? Sure, let's take a look at Rio here. See what we got on Rio. By the way, S&P futures down 13 points now. So we are seeing a weakness in the futures, no doubt about that. Definitely some weakness, and be interesting to see if it continues or how much it continues here. Let me look at the NASDAQ futures. NASDAQ futures are down a little bit, about 20 points. That's not that big of a move for the NASDAQ 100 futures. Looks like tech is actually slightly stronger here in the overnight. I'm just going to check the 10-year. Doesn't look like I'm getting any feed data on the 10-year just yet. Maybe it's fractionally up, but not too much going on there. All right, looking at Rio Tinto. Big bounce on Rio Tinto here. For the most part, I think this is something you start to look to short at a certain point. I don't know if this would be an okay level at 73.60. There's a gap fill. If it really got extended all the way up here, this would be the no-brainer short up here. But you'll start to hit resistance right around 73.60. Again, I don't see anything I definitely wouldn't go long here. It's had such a big move. You're late to the party chasing it. But at the same time, it's not quite extended enough to short. You got to look for some of those higher levels to pull the trigger on in terms of shorting it. Okay? VTRS for Alex. Let's take a look at this one. Yeah, I mean, that's had a big move to the upside there. Little bit of a double top. My only concern is that you might get a small pullback here at double top, but then there's just above it, there's more resistance levels here, and all the way up. So again, it's coming off a recent low. You might again get a small pullback. If you want to be very nimble, you could probably get in there and get out, but don't stick around too long in terms of that one. By the way, just a little note here, you can see Bitcoin kind of falling, not a huge fall in Bitcoin, but basically from, 42,000 and change to 41.8. But again, just notice that the S&P futures opened, the S&P futures have sold off, and Bitcoin is selling off with them. I mean, it's just, again, very intriguing to notice how the S&P futures and the NASDAQ and so forth, they really do dictate the near-term price action on Bitcoin, at least for now. I do think down the line, in 5 or 10 years, maybe that changes, but it's basically a risk factor, right? Bitcoin and cryptos are risky, And therefore, if the markets are de-risking, then cryptocurrency is going to de-risk. Okay? Ken saying, how high can SOX go? My entry is 323. Sure, let's take a look. So really, when you look at SOX, you have to look at the SMH. SMH, honestly, I think the SMH eventually gets down here. I just don't know how long it'll take. But that should be, that's a fair amount of more distance. You'll get a little bit of support right at this low here on the SMH. But this will be your first big support area. And then after that, right here. So again, you could just, I don't know what that would equate to on the SOX, the SOXS. But those are some of the levels that you'd be watching for. Okay. David saying, should I average down on GOTU, TME, and Tiger, or do you see that these have too much risk to add? So I think on TIGR, that's okay. TME is okay. I probably wouldn't on GOTU. The main reason is because no one has any clarity yet on what their business is after they had to turn a good chunk of their business into nonprofit. So again, that's the kicker is you just don't have any clarity. So like, a TME, a Tiger, TIGR is a broker that has, brokers, they have licenses in different countries. Like, they're going to be fine. They're going to rock and roll. They're going to end up making a lot of money, especially if the breakout in the Shanghai Composite that I think is coming is going to come, because then brokers will do really, really well. TME, they're a big company already. I think that they'll do fine once the regulation stops, so that one's fine. But again, the lack of kind of understanding of what GOTU is going to have afterwards keeps me from averaging down. The good thing about it is that if they end up having a good business, the valuation right now is so low that the stock could double, triple, quadruple very, very easily, and you could still end up making money on it, assuming your average is somewhere around where I have it. But basically, I look at that one like an options trade. Like, it might go up 4 times. Awesome. I make good money at that point. But it also, in all fairness, could go to, a penny. And that's just the cost of doing business kind of thing. Okay? Oh, you're welcome, Brant. No problem at all. Oh, thank you, Ronak. I appreciate the kind words as well. Thank you. Sid saying, I'm very excited joining with you guys. Just a quick question. What do you think of DraftKings? Sure, let's take a look at DKNG here. See what we got on that one. So DraftKings extremely oversold until the last couple days. So this is the tricky thing, right? So I never like buying stocks when they've already bounced. Like, even a bounce of that magnitude, which isn't a huge bounce considering the fall, I just can't chase that. So basically what I would say to you is wait. It's going to go lower. As a swing trade, this is going to be your major target. So you're looking, notice this is right at the $20 level. So a pierce of $20 is an amazing opportunity. Now, I do think this could bounce back to $30 prior to that, or even a little bit above 30 before the next leg down. But again, as a technical trader, you have to ask yourself, every entry you take, and this is a very important point, every entry you take, you have to ask yourself, what is my technical reason right at this price for getting into it? And if you don't have a technical reason, you really can't, you shouldn't do it anyways. And in terms of this, it's bounced already, so really you're not at a technical support because you've already bounced off of any sort of technical support. So you just kind of have to sit back at this point and let it do its thing. And again, I still think it could go to $30, $32. But again, at some point, it's going to go down to 20, according to everything I'm seeing on the chart. Okay? Brant saying, do you worry about the asset bubbles bursting gold property stocks? Well, gold, I don't think gold is an asset bubble, personally. I think that's one of the few that's not an asset bubble. I think property is, absolutely. I think stocks are. I think cryptocurrency is. Cryptocurrency already seeing the bubble being burst with a lot of the altcoins down. You can look at Cardano or some of these other ones. They're down 70% off of their highs. But if the one I don't think is in a bubble is gold, considering the amount of money printing that's gone on. I actually think gold, again, I think I've said this many times, but I think gold will be the best performing asset in, listen, silver could also rival that, but the metals will be the best performing asset class in 2022 here. Having said that, I sold my house in Oregon. I'm now renting in Florida. So I basically do my life according to the charts and according to what I'm seeing, and I do see property bubbles. So I'm more than happy to unload my house in Oregon. Stocks, I have some longs in Chinese stocks and some other longs like Peloton right now as swing trades, but for the most part, I have my shorts that I've been holding longer term for a bigger drop. And in terms of cryptocurrency, same thing. I'm not looking to buy anything in Marriott, just in and out type price action. So the beautiful thing about being a trader and being a swing trader is that you can maneuver perfectly and kind of set yourself up for this, for the deleveraging that I do think is on the horizon. Okay. Matthew saying, are there levels on Apple that you have an eye on currently that you'd look to take a position on or at least consider it? Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big, every time I look at Apple, I'm like, listen, it's an amazing company, but should it be valued where it is? I personally don't think so. So I actually do have a short on Apple, and I continue to look for a bigger pullback. You will have a pullback in the not-too-distant future to this pivot. You can see there's also a gap fill right there. Eventually, when we do get into a serious bear market, I do think Apple's going a lot lower. I still have it penciled in to fill this gap down here at $96. So again, I know that's a big drop from here. I mean, basically a 50% drop. But I do think that's going to happen to Apple, which is amazing considering it just hit $3 trillion in market cap. That tells you that the market cap at some point is going to go back to basically $1.5 trillion. Quite something. Okay? Daniel saying, I made a mistake and sold some SPXU and SOX at a loss, but rebought at 338, small position. Should we wait to get back into SPXU? I know you're waiting because of tax losses. Yeah, so again, Daniel, make sure you saw what I did, right? So the positions I sold for tax losses, I then bought other shorts like DXD, which is short the Dow. I shorted more of the SMH, which is the semiconductors, which is basically the same thing as buying the SOX. So again, I purposely did that. It was a maneuver that was actually, in my opinion, very, very smart. Considering what I saw in the markets, the decline coming, I didn't want to get out of those shorts, but I also wanted to take the tax, write-off against some of my gains. So that's basically what I did. So again, if you didn't do that, then that's up to you how you want to handle it. But I hopefully you did buy DXD and you bought some of these other ones and you shorted more SMH like I did, so at least you kept that exposure for the pullback that we've seen recently. Okay? Let's see what else we have here. Mark saying, do you think it's a good time to initiate a position in ARK? Let's take a look. ARK Invest here. Oh, man. It is getting close for at least a technical bounce, yeah. But I don't think it's quite here yet. Let me see here. There's a good level right there, and then there's more support right here. So I would say if you pierce 80, it might be an opportunity. So I think, down here is probably an interesting area to start. Looks like around $78. We could even hit that tomorrow if we get a major dump. And by the way, futures, S&P futures are down about 15 right now, which again isn't a big move considering what we've been seeing lately. But again, markets are definitely showing some weakness here, no doubt about that. Okay. Ronak saying, hope to enter some new trades with you this week. I'm long Peloton and Net. Any chance you can have a look at Etsy? Sure, yeah, of course we can take a look at Etsy here. See what we got on Etsy. Yeah, Etsy's gotten pounded. No doubt about that. There's going to be a level of support coming in on Etsy right here. This is actually a very good level. It's at 175, so about $10 lower on Etsy. Looks really interesting to me on a swing basis. So again, same thing. Don't look to go long and hold for a long period of time because ultimately my guess is Etsy's going to go lower. But I certainly think that the 175 level would be an intriguing level for a quick bounce if it hits in the next few days. And I'll keep that one on my radar myself. Absolutely. Okay. John saying, what percentage on average does a day trade provide and how many day trades do you like to do per month? So to be honest, day trades per month or day trades per day varies. Sometimes in quiet markets, I'll do 1 or 2 trades a week. So, you're at 10 trades a month for day trading. And then like recently, we've been doing, on average, probably 3 trades a day. So again, you can range from 100 trades a month to 10 trades a month. So again, what's important about day trading, just like with swing trading, is you can never lock. Anyone who tries to tell you that, hey, I'm going to make sure that, you get X amount of trades or whatever it is, you can't really, don't trust that. That's bad, right? There are going to be weeks where I put out a ton of swing trades for you guys, and then there's going to be weeks where we only get 1 or 2 or maybe 0. And that's okay. That means what we're doing is we're being disciplined and we're waiting for the market to come to us or the chart to come to us. Having said that, in terms of what you make on a day trade, it really depends on what you're investing, right? In general, you can look at the track record and see what gains have been generated off my account that starts each year with 300,000. I think in 2021, it started at 300,000, and then I think by the end of the year I'd made about an additional 800,000, so it was at 1.1 or 1.2 million. So again, that's based on me trading those. Your risk tolerance could be more aggressive, in which case you could make a better return, or it could be less. That's really up to you. Each person in the live day trading room has a different amount of money in their account, and they also have a different risk tolerance. So again, we have people that are in the live day trading room that have 25 or 50 million, and then we have people that have 25,000 or 50,000. And again, people that have 25 million, they may have a lower risk tolerance than someone with 50,000. That's okay. So everyone just kind of needs to trade kind of on their terms. I always stress that, because as soon as you trade on someone else's terms, you then get emotional in terms of reactions, and you end up doing the wrong thing. So you end up stopping out of a trade because you're down when it's just about to bounce, and vice versa. There's lots of kind of those emotional things that come in when people trade out of their comfort zone. So the bottom line is, there's lots of money to be made in the market, especially in day trading, especially right now, but you need to trade within your zone, within your comfort zone. Okay? Simone is saying, how do you see the gold miners this year if gold goes up but stock markets are going lower? Thank you. Yeah, so I think if ultimately gold makes a big move up, I think you will see gold miners perform really, really well. That's my expectation at least. And generally the miners perform percentage-wise better than gold itself. Again, they also perform worse when gold goes down, so it's kind of a double-edged sword there. But I think for the most part, that's pretty solid there. Okay? Alrighty, guys. Let me just see here if I have any other questions. I'm running out of time here. Harold saying, just a note recently, I took advantage of your $2,100 deal on the webinars. I just started, but whoa, it is great learning. It is a great learning program. Oh, thanks, Harold. Always glad to get the feedback, and I hope people out there are listening, and at some point, if you guys want to give yourself a present that'll be life-changing, I do encourage you, because the stuff in those webinars is absolutely phenomenal in terms of stuff that you're not going to learn in books. You're not going to find it on the web. Again, Nick and I spent, a long time coming up with those techniques and those proprietary signals. Absolutely. Mike saying, thoughts on Micron for a short with the topping tail? I did see that topping tail, yeah. Let me just take a look here. It is overbought too. My chart keeps on being all wacky here, but we're okay. So my only issue is that here's your high and you pulled back on Friday, so you'd have to see what price action it gives you tomorrow. But yeah, basically you'd keep a stop at any daily close above the topping tail, and you'd be good to go there. Yep. Matthew saying, what's your favorite candlestick pattern? I don't have a favorite one per se. My favorite is when you get multiple ones together, like a bottoming tail on a time count. And for those of you that don't know time counts, they're taught in one of the webinars in that. But, you get two factors. That always excites me. You'll see me perk up immediately as soon as I see a multi-factor trade set up. You get like a bull flag with a time count, or you get a bottoming tail or a reversal candle, or a three-tail theory with a time. Those things can be absolutely epic. Or a bottoming tail at a gap fill on the daily chart is a huge bottoming signal. So really, it's about combining the methods, the patterns, if you will, and that's really the best. Oh, you're welcome, Randall. Randall saying, thank you for making a newbie feel welcome and reassured in 2022. How should I be positioned in percentages with gold, stocks, and crypto? Well, again, gold for sure, at least 10% in gold, I think. That'll anchor your portfolio with potential for continued inflation. Crypto, I honestly, right now, I'm just swing trading crypto. I'm not holding like major core positions in crypto, as I still believe it's got lower to go. So yeah, I'm in and out of crypto. Like right now, I'm actually long Bitcoin in VerifiedInvestingCrypto.com. But it's only for a quick bounce, right? I'm only looking, honestly, for a move back to like 46,000, maybe a little bit above, and then I'll probably take profits. So the bottom line is, definitely have an anchored position in the metals, because I think that's a protective position. And then just have some stocks. Obviously, if you're following what I'm doing in Verified Investing, generally we're long some of these beaten down plays, SE, Net, Peloton, and then also some of the Chinese names. I think those are the ones you want to be long. And then honestly, I'm still short a lot of the indices via long ETFs. So I think that's the best way. But definitely keep some money on the sidelines for crypto when crypto gets low enough, as I do think, again, there is a huge future for crypto. What I think is amazing, by the way, about cryptocurrency, and I'll leave you guys with this last thought, is that crypto, if you look and compare the dot coms, and everyone when I say dot coms, everyone's like, well, yeah, like Gareth said, the dot coms collapsed, 95% of them went away, and then you had some that survived and then they thrived, right? The Amazon is the best example. Was about $100 stock during the dot com bubble, went to $5, and now it's at what, 3,300. And it got higher than that too. So you could see what happens, but also look at the ancillary factors. Like, look at how, for those of you that are old enough, remember how the internet was just coming out at that point, and it was like game changing, right? In the late 90s and the mid 90s, and it was just the newest thing. I mean, I still remember the AOL dial-up. I'm sure a lot of you guys do, how long it took, but it still was so amazing. I mean, how you could get on websites, you could go shopping, you could go, I mean, it was just game changing. And then look at cryptocurrency and how blockchain potentially is going to revolutionize so much out there. It's very similar. And that's one of the reasons why I actually believe in the longer term of cryptocurrency. And just like the internet became such a big thing, I do think that cryptocurrency longer term, for some of its other factors, like with Ethereum and how it's being used now, and just other things like that, it really has a major potential position there. So in the future of the world. So anyways, just my 2 cents on it. I think it's very, very cool stuff to watch, and we'll continue to follow it, and I'll continue to trade it. All right, you guys have a wonderful evening. Thanks for coming out tonight, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.